Hey everybody, and welcome back for another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking to you about our latest experience for the Halloween attraction stuff down at Universal Studios Florida and Walt Disney World Resort. At Universal Studios, there is the Halloween Horror Nights.
Woo.
And at Disney, was it Mickey's Boo Bash? Yeah, so we had those two things that we experienced. We're going to tell you all about them, and also, is it worth it or not? You might be surprised. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so let's kick it off. Sarah, which one would you like to cover?
I would like to cover Mickey's Halloween Party.
Alright, great. You're going first.
The Boo Bash. Okay, price point was, do you remember?
Just over $100.
Per person, and
Yeah.
this was for early September. Somewhere, I don't remember the exact day we went, but somewhere around September 10. I think we went on a Tuesday, which matters because weekends are usually more expensive. Our party started, I believe our party was 9 to midnight. The park closed at 8:30. We already had park admission to that park, so we were already there, but if you didn't, I think you could get in as early as 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. But yeah, so, okay, around 8:30-ish was when we got changed into our costumes, because you're allowed to wear costumes during the Halloween party, which normally you're not, because they don't want kids to mistake you as one of the cast members. So that was pretty cool, being able to wear a costume at Disney World. It's something that neither of us had really experienced before, being that this was our first Halloween party.
No mask, no weapons.
Yes. Nothing touching the ground either. Like, if you're wearing a cape, it can't drag on the ground. I think that was it for the stipulations.
For adults, at least. I think kids could wear a mask, but definitely not adults.
Yeah. All the guidelines are on their website, so you knew that well ahead of time for your costume planning. They gave you a little wristband showing that you were part of the Halloween party. You got a little trick-or-treat bag, which was about yay big or so. I mean, it was a good, you could hold, I don't know, 6 large handfuls of candy. No, it definitely had to be more.
It was way more.
Sorry, I'm thinking of, like, my hands being full of candy, but then I remembered how many handfuls I got put into my bag, and it was a lot more than 6, but alright. Reverse that. Yeah, so they had different trick-or-treat stations. I want to say there was maybe 8 stations to go to.
Something like that.
The best one, probably by far, was the one in the Monsters, Inc. scare room, or the scare floor. It was a really long walk to get to it, because you had to walk through all of the waiting area, but there were 2 stations, one back-to-back from the other, so you didn't have to go to a bunch of different stands. You could just hit up those 2, one right after the other, only waiting in one line. Most of the time, the lines really weren't that long for the trick-or-treat stations. They went through pretty quick. It's not like they sat and waited for each kid to say trick-or-treat. They just walk up, throw the candy in the bag. They had...
Some people threw big handfuls, and some people were conservative.
They had chocolate options, and then, like, Starburst and Skittle options. And you didn't get to pick, they just threw a big handful and you got what you got. But they had a good amount of both, I'd say, for chocolate and fruit-flavored candy.
They are fun size.
Yes. They were not full-size candy bars. They did have free snacks and drinks throughout the park, which was pretty cool. As far as drinks, I thought it was going to be like Dixie cups of fountain pop, but no, these were full 20-ounce bottles. Grab as many as you want. They didn't care. Snacks was like popcorn, the Mickey pretzel, Mickey ice cream bar, the Mickey ice cream sandwich. You could have as many of those as you wanted. Unfortunate for us, we had our dinner reservation right before the Halloween party, so neither of us were really that hungry to eat at the Halloween party, but we did take advantage of those free drinks and brought those back to our room.
Yeah, Sarah took like 8 of them because she brought a bag from, was it Universal or?
The bag that had my Halloween costume in it is what I used to bring some drinks back to the room. Because the Halloween party was over $100 a person, so you're darn straight I'm gonna bring some drinks back for myself. They said, how many do you want? And I just grabbed what I wanted and took it, and that's just the way it went. Let's see, so we talked about the trick-or-treating, we talked about the free snacks and the costumes. There was a really cool, I'm gonna call it parade with air quotes, because it was 3 sets of cavalcades, so it's like one giant parade float with maybe a few dancers before and after it, about 10 minutes apart. There was one that was just straight up villains, miscellaneous villains. There was one that was Nightmare Before Christmas themed. There was one that was Mickey and Minnie and Friends.
And the Maleficent
And then there
Dragon.
was the Maleficent Dragon. The Mickey and Minnie with Friends only went by once. The other 3 went by twice, at 2 different times during the night. So if you didn't catch it the first time, you could catch it the second time they went through. I wish that one was a bit more like an actual parade where it was one after another, because otherwise you had to sit there for about a half hour of the Halloween party waiting for the next float to come by to be able to catch all 3 of them, or all 4 of them, I should say. So I guess that's one thing I think could be tweaked to maybe be a little bit better. Maybe it's because they're short-staffed and reusing cast members. I have no idea what their reasons are.
Rides are open.
They did have a select number of rides that were available with shorter wait times, because you only are able to ride them if you're in the Halloween party, and that's being a separate ticketed event. Wasn't nearly as busy as during normal park hours, especially because everybody's trick-or-treating and watching the parades go by. I'm going to say there was maybe 15 rides or so that were open, minus like the kiddie area, because the kiddie area had all the rides open too. So if you include those, maybe 20 rides total, something like that. I think that about wraps it up. They did have some pretty cool lighting and spooky Halloween music going on throughout the park. I don't want to say scary, because it's not scary for kids, but it's not their typical park music that you would hear. It was more Halloween themed, which is really cool.
The music for the floats, cavalcades, whatever they are, that music was bumping. It was good music.
It was awesome. We do have some pictures available of the floats that we saw from the cavalcades from the parade, so be sure to check those out right about here.
The only other thing that I can think of is there were 1 or 2 shops open during that thing. There was not very many by any means, but there was a couple.
Yeah, the shops did get pretty limited during that time.
So the big question about Boo Bash, was it worth it?
I'd say it's worth going once.
I would agree.
I've heard through some Disney groups through Facebook that I'm a part of that there's normally a lot more available during these Halloween parties that there wasn't available during this one, and they were very frustrated that the pricing was pretty close to the same. I don't really have an opinion on that because this was my first and only one that I've been to, so I don't have anything to compare it to, but the price was pretty high for being at the park for just 3 hours and walking home with a bag full of candy and a handful of pops.
Oh, and popcorn. Because
Popcorn.
they were handing out popcorn like crazy.
Yes, they had an overabundance.
Half boxes of popcorn, Disney. Half boxes of popcorn. That lady gave me a box of popcorn. I said, "Girl, did you eat half of this?" But she didn't hear me, of course. But
Axel heard popcorn.
yeah, our dog heard. But I like Sarah said, one and done for this one. The 3 hours goes very quick. And if you do any of the stuff like rides and whatnot during this, it's going to go even quicker. And you won't be able to do as much of the Halloween stuff that's actually exclusive for that time. So be mindful with your time management.
I think I'd be curious to check one out during non-COVID times to see if it's any different. But
Yeah.
I would definitely be looking at what's available before purchasing that ticket.
Yeah, now that we have an idea of what could be there. The second part of this video, we're going to talk to you about the Halloween Horror Nights that was at Universal Studios. Very, very different than
Yes.
the Disney stuff, and a little bit cheaper, which was surprising to me how much we got for the Halloween Horror Nights compared to what we paid for and got at Disney. Halloween Horror Nights, if you don't know what that is, there are 10 haunted houses set up throughout Universal Studios, and you get to walk in and out of these at your leisure as long as you want to wait. As long as you wait in the lines to get in there, of course. There are food stations that have food themed after the different different haunted houses and whatnot. So one of the ones that I got was the Frankenstein corkscrew, which was a hot dog with a potato wrapped around it like a corkscrew. The 10 different haunted house attractions there's 4 of them that was licensed. That was the Bride of Frankenstein Lives, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Haunting of Hill House, and Beetlejuice, which Beetlejuice was probably our favorite of the bunch.
It was definitely my favorite.
And then there was 6 other ones that were ones that they make up. So one of them was like the greatest hits of all the people that are like the featured people of Horror Nights, if that's what you want to call it. So Jack the Clown is like the main head of this thing. He runs that attraction. And then there was a crime paranormal thing that we actually didn't go to. We ran out of time for that. There was the Tooth Fairy. That was
spooky. I liked that one.
There was
The Town of Carrie.
Yeah, Town of Carrie. There's the Pumpkin Gourd. I like that one. That one was cool. And then there was one more. What was that last one? It was the puppet one. Theater Puppet Mastery.
Yep.
That was the last one. So those are the 10 that were there. If you go to Universal in California, instead of Beetlejuice, they have The Exorcist. Some other things that they have during this is called scare zones. So these are not haunted houses that you walk through. These are just the walkways that as you're going throughout the park, and they are themed to different things. And there are actors that are dressed up that want to get in your face and scare you. It's very funny to see how people react to these things and how the actors pick apart who they want to scare. The reason why I say this is because my experience with Horror Nights, I'm one that usually doesn't jump during horror movies. I didn't jump during this thing.
I'm very jumpy.
These people, there's people walking up like this. They're trying to hide their faces that they're going to be scared. And then these people just roar and jump out and scare these people and getting all in their faces, make them scream. It's a great time. Me, when I was going through the haunted houses, even when we were shoulder to shoulder, most of the time the stuff happened behind me. They didn't even jump out at me half the time. I think I had maybe 3 times that happened to me in the 9 houses that we actually went through where they targeted me. So if you look scared, oh boy, you're going to be a fun night for them. I got some pictures of people that were like getting in people's faces. It was great. It was very, very great. Some wait time expectations for these things. Anywhere from 20 minutes to over an hour. It was really all over the place depending on what time you were standing in line. So check that out.
Hours and pricing?
Pricing was like $90 or something like that. Hours, we were there, it started at 6:30 p.m. and then it went all the way to 1:30 p.m. So a lot longer time frame than Disney.
AM.
Oh, 1:30 a.m. Sorry, 1:30 a.m. So you got like 7 hours to do all this stuff, which you really need 7 hours if you want to try to get through all of it. Lots of walking. Bring your walking shoes. Warn you now. There's also merchandise. There's a lot of cool things you can buy. Shirts. There was a store there. I forget what it's actually called. There's a specific name for it. That's dedicated to all the horror stuff. There's merchandise.
Treats.
All over the place. And then at the very end, there's the treats. We will be showing you some of the treats that we got in a future video. So we mentioned this in another video as well during our COVID video of our trip. But there's also plexiglass and whatnot throughout the haunted houses. It did take away a little bit from the experience because basically, if you saw plexiglass, you knew somebody was coming. Keep that in mind.
For the scare actors to hide behind.
Yeah, because they're not allowed to get directly up in your face because of COVID. A lot of those actors as well are wearing masks, like the medical masks. So that ruined it a little bit because they didn't look as scary, some of them. But
which I think isn't so much a COVID thing as they could have had masks that maybe had that style face of whatever character they were.
that would have been neat.
I think that would have helped a lot.
Otherwise, as far as Halloween Horror Nights goes, it was a lot of fun. I would definitely recommend it at least once. I think now that we know different ins and outs, we are better off. I say that because when we were in the park first that day, and then we went to you can stay in the park, check in, and then get in line. Literally everybody that I asked for an employee, where do I go to redeem my ticket? None of them knew. I think we asked 2 or 3 people,
Including guest services.
yeah, including guest services, and they were just like, "Oh, go." The people that were not at guest services said, basically, just go to guest services to figure it out because they didn't know. They tried to play it like, "Oh, that's where you redeem it," but when I went to guest services, they said, "No, you don't go here." And I'm like, come on, people. It wasn't the first day. It wasn't opening day.
There were some that were mentioning you had to get a wristband. There was no such thing as a wristband.
Nope. Basically, there was an entrance with a couple of white tents to check in at, where you were to scan your ticket, and then you would sit in line to be able to be released towards some haunted houses. We sat in the Beetlejuice line. There's like 3 different areas where you can sit and wait because they have to close down the park, get rid of anybody that's not supposed to be there, and then basically let you go and go into the houses. They are definitely like in the back of everything, so like you wouldn't be able to see these houses from the normal walking throughout the parks, at least in my opinion.
They did still have some rides open.
Yeah, you could still ride, I'd say like
Rip Ride Rocket was definitely open, because that one you can see.
6 rides or something.
Yeah.
It wasn't nearly as many as Disney, but there were a handful. I would say ones that are more geared towards thrill, like the Mummy was available.
Right.
And that definitely fits the theme.
But if you're trying to hit all the haunted houses, you're not going to have time for any rides.
Yeah, skip the rides, even though it seems tempting and not many people are going on them. If you want to hit those haunted houses, there's another thing I'd recommend. Eat before you start this thing. We did not do that, but we also, to be fair, wanted to try some of the food during the event. So, we tried some of the food, and probably if we would have ate before, we would have hit all the houses. But at the same time, our feet were killing us.
Those food lines get long.
Yeah.
Even for simple things that shouldn't take that long, the lines get long.
I know when I went to go to my food stand, I had to wait in line to order my food and then wait in another line that was just as long to get my food. And it wasn't like a couple people, it was like 10 or 20 people. So you wait 10 or 20 people to order and 10 or 20 people to pick up your food. So it does eat up a bunch of your time to eat. If you can, and if you don't want to experience the food part of it, eat before you go. That way you can do your best to try to trek all the way through the houses. Start in the back of the park and make your way around to the front. Alright, so please turn on notifications. That way you are alerted when more videos about our trip drop. We do have a handful more left to go, so more exciting things to talk about. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Drop us a like if you like this video. And drop us a comment letting us know if you've gone to Halloween Horror Nights. Have you gone in the past? What are some really good ones that you've been to? I know looking back on previous lineups, we're like, dang, where were we when this happened?
If you have any thoughts on the Halloween party at Disney World, or any questions about either of our trips there,
Drop it in the comments. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.